Welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast, where we're joined by your hosts, Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. In each episode, we'll be sharing valuable insights and tips to help you turn your NDIS business into a profitable venture. So whether you're just starting out or looking to take your business to the next level, you've come to the right place. Let's stop surviving and start thriving.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast. My name is Paul Bryan and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Tania Gomez. How are you doing today, Tania?
I'm really well today, Paul. How are you going?
Really good, really good. And I'm really interested here. We've got Aaron from Marco Polo joining us today.
We do. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
So in case you haven't met Aaron before, Aaron Cotton is a neurodivergent man and the co-founder of Marco Polo, an innovative platform revolutionizing disability housing through participant-driven solutions. With extensive experience as a pharmacist, the director of Acorn Homes, which is a SIL provider, and a member of the NDS, Aaron has a deep knowledge of the NDIS and SIL sectors. His dedication to improving participants' choice and provider efficiency through technology positions him as a key authority in transforming the disability housing market. Welcome, Aaron. It's so great to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we've had such a great time with speaking with you at the SIL Summits and had so much amazing feedback about your presentations that we thought we definitely had to have you on the podcast so that everyone can hear about the amazing work you're doing at Marco Polo and just really to chat further about SIL and what's happening in this space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, the SIL space is obviously going all sorts of changes happening at the moment. And I think you're 100% right, Tania. The SIL Summit really put a lot of that into perspective for people. And so I've got to say, from everybody on the West Coast, thank you for bringing everyone over. And it was so good to have you there as well, Aaron, to hear from you and what's going on there. I think that with SIL, because there is so much happening, there's so much going on all the time, and it always sort of seems to be in flux. What are the trends that you're seeing in the SIL space right now, and how do they impact providers who are just trying to provide good services?
Yeah, look, there's a number of trends occurring, and unfortunately, a lot of them are quite concerning. SIL in itself, I think we kind of discovered through the SIL Summit that they're facing more issues day in and day out, and they're in a system that fundamentally doesn't really aim to support them. We're not going to bag the NDIS out too much here, but it's not exactly creating a great environment for SIL providers. And SIL is such an important service, like it's 24-hour support. SIL providers are expected to go above and beyond for everything that they do. They're expected to be pseudo coordinators. They organize so many different things that they're not actually paid to do. And yeah, the trends occurring now is that it's just getting harder and harder for SIL providers because the NDIS are just making it more and more difficult for them.
SIL is one of those things that you really are offering, or you're obviously providing a place to live, but that comes with so much more, and it's such a personalized service, and it sometimes feels, and we're not going to bag in day, it feels very commoditized a lot of the time. So I think you're absolutely right there. How do you find that providers are managing that? Because they, as you said, like they're required to do so much more than what they're being paid for. A lot of times they're really being asked to provide services for free, realistically. How have you seen that play out over the last few years?
Well, to be honest, the advent of the SIL home in general, it seems to be a reference that people use a lot. And SIL doesn't cover a home. SIL doesn't cover rent. SIL doesn't cover a multitude of things that providers are actually providing to people for free, and generally at a loss to their own business. So I know within Acorn Homes, we do things quite differently to many providers we've spoken to, but we still include a home. We purchase homes that people rent off of us. They do not pay market rent. We pay for lawn maintenance and all these other bits and pieces that would be considered the tenant's responsibility. But the reality is that under the DSP for participants and under the current price guide for the NDIS, these things just eat into SIL providers' bottom lines.
Yeah, there's so many things, so many unaccounted costs. It's funny, I have almost every week, I had a call just before this where someone's like, oh, one of my participants just got SIL in their plan. We're going to become a SIL provider and we're going to make so much money. And it's and then at the end of the call, they're like, so can you give me your opinion about being a SIL provider? And it's like, well, it's actually really hard to make money. And, you know, if you don't have 3 participants and all of those things that we know, it's really hard to make money. And I think that conversation about what actually are you paying for as a SIL provider versus what are you getting paid for is a really smart place to start. But I'm really interested, Aaron, about Marco Polo and how it helps providers improve the participant outcomes as well as business sustainability. Talk us through, I guess, what Marco Polo does and how it facilitates that.
Yeah, so Marco Polo is basically born out of the idea that the way that we did SIL was different fundamentally to how many others do SIL. So the current, I guess, methodology for filling a SIL home, I think just to reflect back on your story, Tanya, is like, oh, yep, we've got SIL funding. There are 1 to 3 awesome, happy days. We're going to make so much money. And the problem with that is that 1 to 3, inherently, you're being paid a third of what's actually required to pay those staff. So you've got 2 vacancies that you need to fill instantly, basically, because you're losing money from day one that you start providing supports. And a whole myriad of other issues arise. So if you have 1 to 3 participant, you're hemorrhaging money until you fill those. So the providers, based on just the system that we currently operate under, they have to fill that vacancy very, very quickly. And you start to compromise, I guess, the ethical nature of housemates and putting people together. If you've got a massive bill over your head that you need to fill a vacancy, are you going to spend the time to make sure that a match is going to work really, really well? And then it opens up all of these other issues. You have this participant that's currently sitting in this home, they're the anchor tenant, which is what people normally do. And they'll put someone else in and go, yeah, you match on, so you're both male, you both like rugby, and you're roughly the same age. And we know that just doesn't work. You'll generally find that second person will move in. That first participant had no real choice in who was moving in. Conflict arises. I think you can all reflect on times that we've had to share with housemates, and you usually start out as friends. But the key difference there is that you chose that housemate, right? And even then, it still doesn't work out for the best, right? But the problem with disability, and SIL in particular, is that participants, because of the system and the way it all works, they don't actually get to choose each other. So conflicts are almost inherent, because if you have no buy-in into the housemate that's moved in with you, how do you reasonably expect? You've got to get lucky. Like, you have to be the best matchmaker ever for that to work out. And that's something that we saw within our own SIL business through Acorn Homes. And it didn't work a lot of the time. Twice we tried it, didn't work out. So then we transitioned to this newer model, and that's basically what Marco Polo is based off of, is that participants sign up similar to like a flatmates.com. They pick each other first. They're matched on funding levels and ratios and all that sort of stuff, location that they're looking for. They actively decide they want to live together, and then they move in with a provider. So that's the primary way that Marco Polo works. That's the core of what we're working with. And what we've seen from that, when participants actually have that buy-in in who they're living with, placements last way longer. You've got less staff turnover for SIL providers because there's less conflict. And it just works better. It tends to be safer environments. There's more natural safeguarding as well, something that the NDIS and a few of the bigger players in this space are kind of talking about now, is natural safeguarding. Yeah, because you've got pre-existing relationships. You're not relying on that SIL provider to be that facilitator. And going back to, I guess, the second part of that question there is how does that work better for SIL providers? I think it's a given, right? You've got a full house that you start from. You're making profit from day one, technically, right? Rather than having to deal with that loss, that vacancy cost, whilst you're frantically advertising, whilst you're reaching out to every support coordinator to be like, I have a vacancy, please help me fill this, otherwise I have to close the home. Marco Polo is essentially just, I think it works out to be really timely as well, because we're seeing that participant packages are generally being cut, or they're giving a 1-to-3 base ratio now. So getting this match right is just more, it's becoming more and more important. It's becoming the necessity, basically.
I think you could talk to almost any SIL provider and they'll say, yeah, anyone with more than a couple of clients anyway is going to say, yeah, getting that match right has been problematic. Making sure that we've got the right people who aren't in conflict with each other, who, as you said, like start out okay, and then also it's just, I mean, I've never lived in a SIL home, but I can tell you right now that when I first moved in with my wife, the fact of how she left the toothpaste was just I was not happy with that. And that was a thing we had to work through. And so I'm making light of it a little bit, but there are so many nuances that people, I think, don't think about, because they go, it's a business, this should work. And we put people in the home that match on paper, but they're people and people change their minds. And I think that's, from the sound of it, what Marco Polo has been able to do is just help people actually create that bit of initial relationship, to identify what they're looking for and find that housemate that's actually going to work for them. How have you seen this roll out for providers, and how they're utilizing it? Has this been, I guess, a bit of an eye opener for some of the businesses that are utilizing this as well?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think one of the best stories that we have from our own business, right? And it was prior to Marco Polo actually rolling out, as part of the reason for it to roll out, was that we had 2 participants that on paper did not match, not at all. We had an older woman, 65, early onset dementia. Loved craft, right? And then we had this young guy, 22 years old, liked the gym, liked really loud rock music, just completely different. And we're like, we don't think this is going to work. We're in that same situation. We're like, well, we have to fill this vacancy. So do we try it out? And we're like, I don't think this is going to work, but let's give it a go. And we're going to have to advertise again, because this isn't going to last long. But what we found is that something that we never even considered is that she loved her grandchildren and he loved his grandmother. And they had this pseudo kind of relationship where they basically saw each other as grandmother and grandson. And they would spend every afternoon together. They'd get a packet of Tim Tams, they'd have a couple, have some tea, and they'd watch a movie together. And it was just something that we were completely blindsided by, but in such a positive way, that we went, why are we choosing these matches for people when really they've got the capacity to choose for themselves? You can't create a survey that goes, oh, do you have this type of relationship with your grandmother, grandson? The number of pages and questions you'd have to create to kind of do that, it'd be too difficult for anyone to sign up and create a profile. But the ability for them to chat to each other and get to know each other first, they can discover those relationships for themselves. And it takes all that pressure away from the SIL provider. So I think I hope I've answered your question, but it's one of those things that we just never saw coming. And then we're like, well, it makes sense to let people just to choose for themselves and discover for themselves, because they do have that buy-in, and you might be surprised by the result.
Yeah, I think that's a great story. I think I think the thing that is missing is that often people believe that people with disability, either they can't choose or they don't have capacity to choose, or that they know better, or perhaps that it's just too hard. It's just too hard to let them have a choice because they're not going to choose someone fast enough. There's not enough choice out there. They don't have a wait list of people banging down to get into this property. So they just have to take who's there. And the participant just has to get along with them because that's just has to, viability. Otherwise the business doesn't run. So I think there's a lot in letting participants and having a platform like yours that facilitates that, because then it is off the SIL provider's responsibility. And there's lots of other really lovely things you can do as a SIL provider. Then you can get them to match beforehand, get them to choose the house, get them to come and choose the furniture, get them to be part of that, get them to do the day at IKEA picking things out, get them to talk about how they want to decorate the different areas of the room or common areas of the house, and involve them in lots of other decisions then that make them the center of their house, just like everybody else would. So I think that's really important part of it as well. My last question for you, Aaron, was around how Marco Polo can help providers build trust and credibility, because from my perspective, the way you find participants and retain participants is building trust and having credibility. How can Marco Polo help with that?
So there's a couple of different ways. So when people sign up, when providers sign up to Marco Polo, we don't let everyone through. It's pretty different to a lot of the other platforms out there where anyone can create a listing. You can just go for it, say, I've got a house here, come live with us. We actually do vet them independently, whether they're registered or unregistered, but that's also going to be a thing of the past soon with the obviously the mandatory registration of SIL providers. But we don't put all of our faith into the commission registration process to make sure that they're going to be a quality provider. I think the second part around credibility is that you're actually showing that choice and control isn't just a blurb that you let out and go, we empower choice and control and we're participant centric and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, what does that look like? What does that actually mean to you? And how are you actually facilitating that? And I think when you allow participants and their stakeholders, if they don't have the capacity to do that for themselves, when you're actually allowing them to live a normal life, go through the same process any person without a disability would to actually enable choice and control around who they live with, who's supporting them, it automatically increases your credibility because you're showing that you're at that forefront. You're showing that you're willing to allow things to be outside of your control, and you're really facilitating, actual choice. I think there's nothing more credible than having people go about and be a part of that conversation, like you said, Tania, and be like, let's go find a house. Where do you want to live? How can we help to facilitate this thing for you and make it about the person, not about, I found a house that I can rent and I think you should live here because that's what suits me. And when you're actually facilitating those relationships, when you're facilitating those placements, and you've got that participant buy-in, the level of churn that you have in terms of participants moving out or trying to find new housemates just drops through the floor because they've been involved in every process to get it all set up. It's a harder way to go about things in some aspects, but it's going to be hard if you're going to continue to churn through participants and people moving in and out and all that sort of stuff. You're putting yourself at a lot of unnecessary risk. So absolutely increases your credibility to allow real choice and control, but it just, it increases the viability of your business as well.
I love that because literally client retention is one of the greatest levers you can pull from a business standpoint that is going to allow you to be profitable, because obviously every time someone leaves, that really costs you money, and then onboarding new people and then training new staff around that person. But literally just investing at that front end and saying, let's actually get these people matched. Let's find the people that actually want to live together. Let's put the right things in place. allows us to build the right team around that just creates a very solid foundation. As you said, like churn drops through the floor if people have chosen to be there rather than being said, this is your option. You can have any one you like as long as it's that one. Is not a great way to be able to deliver that choice control that everybody is so profoundly happy to say they do, but the actual outworking of that is a completely different effort.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Aaron. It's been fantastic learning about Marco Polo, what you guys are doing, how it all came about, but also I think the area of differentiation that SIL providers are really going to need to start to dive into is obviously how they are bringing people together and then providing those supports. If anybody wants to find out more about it, how can they reach out to you?
Honestly, just go through the website. If you're a provider, you don't have to subscribe right away. You can just sign up. Go through the application process. You'll hear back from our team within a day or so. If you haven't met the criteria, we do reach out to you and say, hey, look, this is probably some areas of improvement before we allow you on the platform. But honestly, just go through the website. So www.marcopoloportal.com. We're quite a small team. The lucky part of being a tech company, you'll generally be dealing with one of the co-founders, if not our lead tech.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us today, everybody. We will see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Profitable NDIS Provider Podcast with Tania Gomez and Paul Bryan. We hope you found today's episode informative and valuable. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a rating, and share it with others who could benefit from our insights. Until next time, keep thriving.